What's up, y'all? Little intro with Frank the guitar. Yeah, check this out. Okay. Dreaming of castles in the sky, falling from heights I cannot dive. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. I think I had that keyboard on the third when I actually wrote that song, and Frank the guitar might be out of tune. And that's the first time I've played guitar at all today, so it's something like that, though. Oh, yeah. That's the third fret, and I think that's actually where that's at. So, anyway, that's actually the intro to one of my songs that I wrote titled This Road. But this is in the Image Clothing Company podcast, so welcome. Let me cover this up. Sorry if there was a little bit of audio noise right there as I was moving the camera. I like to cover up the time so I don't actually see it while I'm filming the episode, and then we just go as we go. So, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, and we here address the human body and its natural function. We come at it through the skeletal system because the fat content changes at different times in our lives, and so does the amount of muscle mass that we do or don't have. Okay? And the reason I said those things slowly, those two items of things that do change within the human body, because this episode here, episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, is titled, Where Did It Go? And we'll get into it. And I'll give some context on why I spoke on those two things as I did just then. I'm going to adjust this camera just a slight bit more. Hold your patience. I don't know. Forever hold your peace. Ideally we could, right? But where'd it go? When all of a sudden we're anxious. That's what we're going to get into. Stuff like that. So, yes, here we go. In the Image Clothing Company, we have three sides to us. We have this side here. As I mentioned, this is a podcast, In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. The truth of all things. Don't believe me. But you want to know how to navigate this earthly existence you've been placed into / onto? Well, that's where our answers are. Myself included. I get my answers there as well. Reading true passages of scripture. I don't know why I said that as like a question, but I think because a lot of people don't quite know where to turn. As me, in times of my life, I knew where to turn, actually. I mean, I was born and raised within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but there were times in my life where I felt like I didn't know where to turn because I was not doing it. Even though I knew. It's kind of like, hey, where'd it go? Right? The title of this episode, 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. A lot of good stuff is going to be spoken on in here. So, another third of our company is what I title the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. And what we do there is address what I talked about a little bit, a couple minutes ago, the anatomy of the human body. I discuss the body as it is, the only way that it works, as if it had never been altered by anything. But human beings wear clothing, and we do it for good reasons. We do it for many reasons. But the body only really has the functionality it does. It's just a mechanical machine, the way that we address it in the physical operation and moving through our environment sense of being. So each bone that connects to another bone within the body just has a joint and a function, and it only does that. Only that. We can't get our body to do anything it doesn't do. We didn't design it. We can't decide it. That was an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast itself. That was the title, and I love that. So, we talk about things, though, naturally eating, sleeping, staying hydrated, and what it really means. Sitting down, and why chair heights are so unnatural. And we don't really get it because in modern 2025, today being the 22nd of February 2025, we have occupations where we're sitting in chairs, and that never could have happened in the past without the world being structured the way that it is in modern day. We also have colleges and universities and school systems that have these heights of chairs that are cutting off our hamstrings, which is the whole rear of our upper leg. It's a very large muscle and group of them. And If anything within the body isn't working correct, something else and many things have to compensate to just try to continue to operate as a physical, mechanical machine. We live on an Earth with gravity that pulls us straight down to the center of that globe that we've been placed onto. There's two sides to us, two arms, two legs. In between there's no belief to have, no opinion, and you don't have to sit within a yoga class to get there or to believe it. Because I always say, don't believe me. Evan Strong, I mean it. I speak on universal truths that are apart from me, unchanging, eternal truths. Because really, we're discussing the gospel of Jesus Christ, the truth of all things. Truly. It's a lot of times using the word truth, and I don't get to decide what it is or change it or have an opinion on it that's going to matter if I do or not. So, if that doesn't quite make sense to you right now, that's okay. As I say, if you've got a problem with me, Evan Strong, or if you've got a problem with In the Image Clothing Company, which is the company that I have personally founded, cool, that's fine. Stick around. Deeper context, more understanding will come from more explanation. And that's what we're giving here. That's what these podcast episodes are. And the ways that we do that, that's what I do is I sit here and I speak. So hang out. You got a problem with it? Good. Right? When we start to ask questions, when we start to really dive deeper into things, that's when we understand them better. So, because this episode is amazing. Something I never understood in my past, a lot of the things that we'll talk about within here, and something that a lot of people don't understand, and people who are elders, people who are 80 years old, 90 years old plus, they have gone their entire life not knowing these type of things, and it's not something I'm deciding. It's not an opinion that I even could have, because I can't change just what there is, whether I was here or not, or whether I could speak about something or not. So that's how we're going to approach this as we do the things we do within In the Image Clothing Company. So yes, but all these natural things that the body does, natural just meaning the only way that it's designed to, and anything else is altering its natural way of doing it, right? You take an animal out there in nature and you place clothing onto it that's going to like restrict it. It's going to be like, this is annoying, and trying to get the clothing off. But human beings are no different in the physical function sense. So clothing that's imbalanced at all changes the body. What I was saying when I was talking about no belief to have, no yoga class that you're sitting through, there's a center line to the human being because there's a spine that's being fed by the brain through the brainstem with a nervous system, an electrical system that allows the body to have its sense of touch. And that's in the center. I can't tell you something if it's just there. It's your body. You're over in Maine in the United States of America, and I'm over in the state of Utah. I've never met you, and maybe I never will, but I can tell you how your body works, as long as I'm correct about knowing how the body works. But we're all universally designed in the image, like the first three words in the Image Clothing Company, this company here that I personally have founded, in the image of our living God. By and through Jesus Christ, we were designed. And now we are this physical, fleshly thing, and we just need to be able to know how it works, and a lot of us don't. And I didn't that well until right around the time of me starting to do the things that would end up becoming In the Image Clothing Company. So I just don't want anyone to believe me, and I mean it. You'll hear me say that. At least you have the highest potential to if you watch any other of the past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, because I've said it many times. And I say it for good reason, because you don't have to believe truth. It just is what it is. You can't deny it without lying to yourself, really. So the body only does what it does. Now, the other third of our company is In the Image Clothing Company Music. That humbled me, man. On In the Image, I don't need to explain it. That was amazing to me. I'm grateful for how that came out. On In the Image Clothing Company Music, I discuss setups of guitars. I have Frank the guitar, what you heard within this intro, little Yamaha CGS 102A with a custom radius that I've done to it to allow the hands to mesh with it, because the hands are round. There's no opinion that I can have on hands that I've been given, that I didn't design. They are round. We live in a modern 2025, and a lot of things are very unnaturally flat, and it's damaging the whole body from those fingers that are using those things all the way down to the tips of our toes, collapsing the arches in our feet, putting our bodies into external rotation. So I discuss setups of guitars and how to just allow that thing that we're doing to work with the human body the only way that it's going to. And everything that we do when it comes to music. I make music over there, and we show how to just allow the body to be positioned correct, meaning just natural. I'm not telling you something other than how your body works that we can't change or decide. So, there we go. I'll talk real quick, as I do, about where clothing needs to sit in the Image Clothing Company's 2 prerequisites just to allow the body to be further unaltered, meaning to further allow the ability for our bodies to not be altered. There we go. That's sweet. And then we'll get into this. This is going to be a beautiful discussion, and I'm grateful for what it's already been up until this point. That's real. I really enjoy these podcasts, even throughout the intro. I'm getting things from them, even though I'm the one speaking the information. Truly, that really does happen. Before we even get into the discussions, I'm like, because like I said, I got humbled and I got convicted of what I'm saying and how it's just as real as it is. This is going to be really cool. It already is. So, clothing. I'm not trying to tell you something. You don't have to be in fashion. You don't have to think that you want to do this thing, that thing, or the other one. You're just inside of a physical vessel, which is your human flesh, that you didn't decide to do, really, right? I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how the pre-existence worked in this current moment, but the body only will ever do the operations that it has, and to allow that to be the case, all the bones that connect to the other ones, and that's what we call a joint, as we talked about at the beginning here, they only will have a neutral in everything that they do. And so to allow that to be the case, the pants that we wear, if you're a man, a woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the globe, or any time period, the pants that you wear need to be, and I can tell you this, yes, entirely above your hips, my hips as well, for the waistband of our pants. And the angle of them needs to be slightly higher in the front than it does in the rear. The core muscles, the abdominal muscles in the front of our bodies only can activate if they contract. Muscles take endpoints and they pull them together, get shorter to work. The core of the human being should and always would be activated, unless or until, and ideally never until, altered. That's how the body works. In order to keep the core naturally contracted and activated, supporting the entirety of the body from top to bottom, while stemming from the central part of it, the core, and going up and going down, that's the angle the pant waistline needs to be in. Otherwise, it's just physically pulling on those muscles constantly, elongating them, stretching them out, and that's a battle no human being can win. It's a physical thing going on. So, belt buckles in the front of pants, pulling them down. Things in the front of pockets, pulling down the waistband, also pressing against the hip flexors and the quads, taking the pelvis anterior. You will never be able to have a naturally functioning body in those cases. Nor could I. I'm no better. I'm not saying that anybody's different, because we're all equal human beings. We're all sinful by nature. Okay? The tops that we wear, the seams on top of our shoulders need to sit evenly behind these two little bones that are up on the very tops of our shoulders towards the ends of the edges of the shoulders where the functionality is actually at. That's the other end of the collarbone that comes down to the center right here below your throat. And those collarbones will then be able to be in the angle where they naturally sit. The scapulas on the rear of the body would naturally then be able to be where they are going to be if there was nothing potentially altering them. And now your shoulders are in their neutral position, sitting behind your body. The only place they will ever work, the only place where the upper, middle, lower trapezius muscles connect into, the only place where the rotator cuff actually has operations, the only place where from that point down you can have a fully extended elbow and a neutral wrist traveling out to a naturally open palm that correlates with the arches in our feet. That's the only way that's going to happen with a shirt placed on you. Meaning if the shirt's any other location, as far as the seams on top, your body will be altered. So button-ups are different because there's a band of material rather than just a singular seam. And so they naturally sit behind the shoulders. And ideally, for those edge seams of our shoulders, they sit right at the very edges of where the rotation of the shoulder happens. Otherwise, that's going to be altered if those seams are in any other location. Now, In the Image Clothing Company has two additional things that we say are prerequisites. And the reason I separate them a little bit from just discussing where clothing needs to sit is because just about in every case, people are wearing something they'd call pants and something they'd call a top, like a shirt or anything like that. But a lot of times people have shoes that don't have laces. And depending on the time period, the second prerequisite to lacing, which I'll talk about both of these things, is removing all the tags from within clothing. But tags within clothing didn't even exist decades back and then ever before then. And if you're making your own clothing, or depending on who is, there might not be tags to begin with. So our two prerequisites, which I'll get into and fully explain right after I say this, those are kind of conditional on what I just discussed. So that's why I do separate two prerequisites for In the Image Clothing Company and just discussing clothing in general, as in generically, if we can kind of almost vaguely say tops and bottoms, pants and shirts. Okay, so yes, because those two things you're going to have on, but some people don't really wear shoes at all anyway. So there's no need to worry about laces in those cases. And then, like I said, if you are wearing clothing commonly that doesn't even have tags, then there's no tags in those cases to remove. And that never was even a thought to have until they invented tags, changed the legal system of, having to put information within clothing that you're purchasing, well, as the manufacturer clothing that you're going to sell. So, yes, our two prerequisites are the shoelacing technique that we use under In the Image Clothing Company, found anywhere you find us. Yeah, you can find us online. It's 2025. We have the internet. And the shoelacing technique that we do use, labeled In the Image Clothing Company shoelacing technique, shapes the shoe the way that our feet are. They only do what they do. And so that's just the way you're going to weave a rope across the top of our feet, mine and his and hers, and then with that, tying the shoes evenly over toward the inside on both feet to then allow no restriction to the feet from the lacing. Now the shoes shape and, sole and size, that's something else. But as far as what laces are doing, you're introducing ropes to the body. Drawstrings, shoelaces are two that we commonly do. You can very, very much alter the body by tying a knot. You're just taking two ends of a rope and putting one side over the other in the case of how it's commonly done for the things we're discussing, and that will just cause a twist. But within shoelaces, that's okay as long as we're doing it to the center line of the body that is there. Now, secondly, like I had started to mention, removing all tags from clothing. They're causing a gap if they're in there, protruding, changing the position of the skeletal system, but also the material they're made out of is not allowing the musculature of the body to be able to activate against them. So as I said earlier, if anything within the body isn't working correct, something else and many things have to compensate just to keep the body trying to work, but it's being altered. So, in those cases, right? Darn, man, this is a, like I said, humbling episode. Let's get into it. The reason I titled this one here, episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, Where'd It Go? It's probably titled Where Did It Go? But I'm somebody who likes conjunctions, which are like two words put together. Where to go, right? Rather than where did it go? It's just a little bit like, seems a little bit like choppy to me. And I'm very flowy, brother. I mean, I make music and I have a background of a lot of lyricism. So where to go, right? It's just a lot more flowy. So if I say it throughout this, that's probably how I'm going to word it, times and places. Here's the thing. I've said this and I've said it very boldly, and then I also always am saying in the times that I do, meaning often I do, that I don't speak opinions here on In the Image Clothing Company as all three sides of the company. At least I try not to. Try to keep all my opinions out of what I do, even in my own personal life. But it probably seems a little bit weird because we have an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Running. And we have an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Workouts. And in both of those, I made it pretty apparent that I was saying your runs from yesterday don't help you today. And your workouts from yesterday don't help you today. And so where'd it go, right? Now we're here. Now we're in episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Because where did it go? When I was a teenager, and I mentioned this a little bit within... I've mentioned this, but we're going to talk about this and get into depth and hit this from multiple sides and about multiple different things. But when I was younger, quite a few years ago, like a late teenager and maybe somewhere around 20 years old, I remember there was a period of time specifically where I took about 3 months and I worked out hard. Every other day, I do somewhere around 45-minute workout probably as far as weightlifting. And I gained somewhere between 15 to 17 pounds of muscle mass. But now I'm 25. And now today's date is the 22nd of February, 2025. And I don't have that muscle that I gained in those 3 months back when I was somewhere around 20 years old. So where'd it go? Right? We have a weird approach as far as if you're looking at it from the lens of what you've been told by doctors, by sports coaches, by personal trainers, by anybody who's a dietitian, physical therapist, right? Getting into these kind of things. And I tell you how I've got a problem with specialists. But I also say don't believe me, and I mean it. Let's talk about things as they are, but we're really misled as a society in 2025 and around this time period. That muscle mass that I gained is no longer within my physical being. It is gone. Now, since I do not do any kind of workouts to intentionally grow my muscles larger than they are just naturally going to be, my body's in its natural state. And it functions better than it did in those times when I intentionally was trying to get an excessive amount of muscle mass. And it happened. I gained it. But if you ever have done any kind of muscle building, exercising, you probably have heard and you've probably experienced when you stop doing these workouts intended on gaining muscle, in about 2 weeks, you've lost, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, and it probably varies, but seriously, it can be up to somewhere around half the muscle mass that you have gained in only about 2 weeks of stopping. But where'd it go? What happened? Is that a problem? If you gained it and you've intended on doing something good for your body, then is it something you have to keep up now that it's something that you just started? You're 28 years old, let's say, and you just start working out. So what about those 28 years that you've lived before that point? Was your body just in absolute turmoil? And the only remedy to that is to do workouts to gain more muscle than it would ever naturally have? Well, the answer is no. Here's the thing. It's not an opinion of mine, because I know that people probably are going to go to that I'm just trying to say something, trying to sell some kind of view or belief. Don't believe me. I mean it. Let's look at the body for a second. Okay? That's what In the Image Clothing Company does, physically. Our whole key phrase is allowing, keyword, the body to work. We'll never get our bodies to do anything they weren't designed to because we didn't design them. They just have a foundation that they will always come back to. Because we can work out and gain 60 pounds of muscle, pure muscle. But then if we stop working out, our bodies will go back to the same state they were in right before we started working out. I mean, like the instant before you picked up that first dumbbell on the first set of whatever it was that you did when you started this journey that gained the 60 pounds of muscle mass. The body only has one foundational point. and it's going to work the best there. So when people are doing exercises, whether it's at home, whether it's at the gym, whether it's this or that, right? Whether it's all the avenues of what it means to do exercise, but having that just be the intent behind the only reason you're doing this thing right here that you're doing is to quote unquote work out, quote unquote exercise. Once you stop doing that, and before you started doing that, your body's just in its normal. It's actually unnatural to work out. Do I have an opinion? No. Don't believe me. If you got a question with this, that's why I say if you've got a problem with what we talk about here, stick around. We give so much context. I've got videos that are long. The podcasts are very lengthy. The videos on the main site of In the Image Clothing Company where I discuss the anatomy of the human body and how it naturally works, they're lengthy. In the Image Clothing Company music as well, there's some videos on there that have quite a bit of length to them because I discuss things so thoroughly to the degree that I feel they need to be within what I make so that you can tell I do not have an opinion. And I'm very clear to say, do not believe me. It's not about me. I can't decide what is true, but we're speaking on truth. We're messing up as we do it, if and when times and places, take it with a grain of salt, but don't believe me. But take the truth within what we say, and there you go. It manifests itself to you. That's why I mentioned you can be on any part of the globe, and these things do apply to you, and always will. The human being is only what it is, and always will be. Always has been. A little bit bold? Don't believe me. I mean it. Do not. Don't come getting after me about what I've said. If it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to you. But stick around and get deeper context. Okay, let's get into this. The human body just has its foundation. It just has its natural. Because your runs last week don't help you this week. Your dieting 6 months ago when you went on a 6-week diet and gained or lost this amount of weight, cleared this part of whatever in your body, so you think, well, what about now? It's been 6 months since then. Where'd it go? Where'd all the progress go? It was never really there. It was just an illusion of thinking you're doing something that will last. The body's only now. Truly. I'm gonna really take this a little bit slow, as you can tell. Sometimes I'm ripping through words. Past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, I can speak very quickly. I think very, very quickly. I'm taking this a little bit slow because I want it to be so clear. We'll see. Maybe I start ripping through words halfway through this and just, get a little bit crazier with the way that I'm approaching things, and some random beatboxing comes out like it sometimes does, and my voice is all over the place doing different kind of characters or whatever. But as far as I want this to be heard as it is, I don't have an opinion on this, nor could I. That could be valid. This is one of our episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. These are numbered. These are going to live here forever, where they are placed. And I mentioned the things we discuss in here will live on as eternal truths to human beings forever. Again, I mess up. But as far as the basis of what this is how it is. Don't believe me. It's just the truth. So, yeah. Your diets that you're doing to intend on doing something to change your body in some way won't have any benefit once you stop them. Just as your workouts won't have any benefit once you stop continually doing them day after day. You can be doing all of the things you want to do as much as you want until you don't anymore. It only lasts in the instant you're doing it. There's no opinion to this. I want to take it a little bit slow. Soak it in, internalize it. Think about your past dieting experiences if you've had them, your past workouts, your past whatever that you've done to try to get your body to maybe operate in a little bit of a, what you would say is better way, more quote unquote healthy way, right? Internalize this. Where'd it go once you stopped? You're on a streak of what you would call quote unquote eating well. What happened once you weren't having that intention anymore? Where'd it go? Right? You were a bodybuilder in college, and now it's been about 4 years. Your body doesn't look the same as it did in the moments of working out. Where'd it go? Right? I'm not making this something it isn't. I cannot have an opinion on this and have it be anything valid. But this is just how it is. This is the truth. The body only has one foundational normal, and it's where it is if you're just eating the proper amount of food that your body needs to stay sustained, if you're just hydrated, and what that actually means, not just drinking water that's flushing your body through, but actually knowing what it means to be hydrated and allowing your body to just have the intake of things that it needs to be able to regulate its fluid amount. And if you're just allowing your body to stay as it would always naturally be activated as a whole, the whole body involved, because the whole body goes wherever the rest of any part of it does, then there's only one normal the body has. You hearing this? Don't believe me. This is the truth. And people are very, very far from it in modern 2025. I can't make this something it isn't. I can't make this up. I can't try to convince you of what you can look at your past and see happening. And in fact, I'm not telling you to do anything. In the Image Clothing Company is always on the other end. Stop it. Stop the restriction. Stop the momentary things, the momentary workouts, the momentary diets, right? The momentary trying to elevate my heart rate so that once I stop running, it goes back to its only normal. Weird. Cardio's a myth. Let me tell you something, because I'm not. Don't believe me. But this is the truth. Cardio is a myth. You're only working out your heart in the moment you're exerting yourself at a much higher level than 99% of the other part of your life, when your body is going to naturally be in its only normal working state of every part of it. There's only one normal to the body. Okay. Can we see that? I've sat on this long enough. I feel it. I feel I've sat on this long enough. There's no opinion that Evan Strong has to this, nor could I. I am the founder of this company who speaks very bold truths in the Image Clothing Company. We're a little bit different than a lot of modern things, because just as I'm saying, there's only one normal to the body, there's only one truth to what our earthly existence as a human being is, and it never will change, and it never has. We don't get to decide it. Okay? There we go. Now, with that, I don't need to, for the sake of, I already have, in past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, talked about things like workouts. And I've given a lot of context. I think it was an over a 2-hour-long episode in the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Workouts. Also running, I discussed that in an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Running. So, I've given context, I've given deep, thorough, 3 times explanations on these things already. So I'm not going to touch so much more on that within this episode here, episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Where'd It Go? Because you can see from what I've discussed, I don't have an opinion on this, nor could I. But that's why I'm always saying you are wasting your time doing workouts. Just as I was in this experience of what I was describing when I gained so much muscle mass, but now it's not there anymore. What? Where'd it go? Well, back to my body's only normal, okay? So the body only has a normal. It only has one foundational point of working. It only has one resting heart rate, speed. Okay? Hear this. Not because I'm telling you something, don't believe me, but this is the truth. So there you go. You can do all the flexibility that you think you want to do as far as stretching goes, right? Once you stop, where did your quote-unquote flexibility that you quote-unquote trained into go? The body only has one full range of motion in each and every joint of it. And it should have that unless or until, and ideally not until, restricted. It's designed with those ranges of motion. You don't need to be stretching into them. And if it feels like there was a point when you did that and finally got to where your body should already have, as far as the ranges that it is given by our God, where to go now if you don't feel like you can get there anymore? Those ranges are still there. Bones will just go until they hit into each other. The elbow, for example, you go until the bones can't anymore. The knee, bringing your heel up to your glute, that only goes until your heel goes up to your glute. And when that's happening, the bones of the lower leg and the bones of the upper leg are also potentially going to just hit into each other. So you don't need to train those things. Don't let me tell you something. Don't believe me, but this is the truth. Where to go? If you feel like you can't get into those ranges of motion that you intended on changing that and getting to them, and you had a moment in your life where you spent some time doing stretches to have that happen, but now time has passed and you feel like you can't do that anymore, well, why not? You still are the same being. You still have and always will have the same ranges of motion that your body was given at birth by our God. It's just a skeletal frame that is like a robotic arm that has a hinge to it. So where would it have gone if it wasn't always just what it is, right? This is not an opinion to have. This is just the truth. So don't get all jumping out of your boots about how much you've done this and that and personal trained people at the gym for the past X amount of 3 times my lifespan at this point, right? I don't care. I'm not right, but what I'm saying is the truth. It's not about me, Evan Strong. Another human being could say these things as well, as long as they're speaking them as they are and always will be. There's only one foundational normal that your personal body has now, has always had, and will always have. And you can choose at certain little blips of time and moments to take that normal foundational being that you are and cause it to overwork its muscles so that they grow larger because they're being stressed and strained, which is all that working out is. But then once they stop being so stressed and strained, those muscles will go back to their only normal again. And you can be 45 years old and have resting heart rate of somewhere around, let's say, 59 beats per minute, and then think that now you need to go start running and elevate your heart rate to 140, 160, whatever you're doing, and then stop the run, and your heart rate will actually go back to that 59 beats per minute. Back to its only normal? Weird. So the question is then where did it go? I mean, the ability that you had to stand up straight at one point, all quote unquote good posture is, and I've talked about this many times in the Image Clothing Company podcast, but also just throughout all 3 sides of the company, maybe not on In the Image Clothing Company music, but right, I mean, we just discussed this here, quote unquote, hear that correct, quote unquote posture, quote unquote good posture, quote unquote immaculate posture, whatever you want to say. It's a myth. The human body is on an earth with gravity. The body is just a skeletal frame that holds things up. All the musculature does is operate that skeletal frame so that it can move through its environment. It's going to just naturally, because it was designed this way, stand as vertical as it can while still having a slight bend in all the joints to stay within some range of motion to keep those muscles activated as an entirety of a body that we have. There's no such thing as posture. There's the only way the body's going to naturally stand vertically, using the least amount of energy to do that, and then there's any alteration that happens apart from that. It's the truth. Don't believe me. I can't make this something it isn't. And not only am I just discussing it, but we here at In the Image Clothing Company actually show you how to allow your body to work. Undisputed applies to every human across the entirety of the globe from beginning to end. Is that crazy? It probably sounds a little bit too good to be true to some of those people out there that like to go to the gym to work out, but then complain when they feel like they have eaten too many, what do you want to call it? Calories? Carbohydrates? Right? I mean, I ate more ice cream and cookies than just about anything else. That's not an exaggeration or some kind of just thing to say. Yesterday we were at a buffet, and I had a big old bowl of ice cream. Just about every single time that I go to the grocery store, within the past couple of months at least this has been the case, I'll get a vanilla ice cream cone first when I arrive, and I'll walk around the store eating it, and then once I'm done eating that, I'll grab the cart and then shop for the groceries that I was there to get. Tonight I ate 8, give or take, little chocolate chip cookies at this family gathering that I was at, and I'm the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Our whole goal is allowing the human body to work. And at this current time, I eat more sugary, sweet snack type stuff than anything else. Right? Meaning that's the case. But the reason I ask right like that is the body's just going to do what it's going to do. And it's unfortunate that people are so misled. So we're speaking truth, and I can't tell you something, meaning I can't make anything something that it isn't, but the body only has one foundational normal workings. The body's digestive system only works how it does, and it starts in the mouth. The saliva breaks down carbohydrates, fats, before whatever we place into our mouth even gets down into our actual abdomen. And so you need to eat very slow, very, very thoroughly chew your food, allow your saliva to fully coat it, allow it to be as close to your body's temperature as it can be before it goes into you, and swallow ideally no air with it. The digestive system of a human being is just a biome, and it doesn't like things introduced to it that it's not going to be able to work well with. So that's how it's actually designed to work. And I can't tell you something. Don't believe me on it. But try it, and your life will change. As far as anything we discuss here at In the Image Clothing Company, when we're giving context on how the human body works, the only way that it does, because we didn't design it, we can't decide it. I'm going to cough, kind of just clear what's in my throat out of it. Because I actually only had one small sip of milk with all those cookies. Right? What does it mean to stay hydrated? It means allow your body to retain the amount of liquid that it needs by itself, because it has a system of electrolytes that balances that. If we're allowing the things we place into it to go into it, the only way that it works. Because you can go out there and sweat all you want, but you shouldn't be, in most all cases. Sweating isn't something that should happen as often as it does, because it's the body getting rid of water that it is using for the functions that water gets used for. in the body. And so the reason you're drinking so much water is because you're doing something, and probably an accumulation of quite a few things, that's not allowing your body to naturally regulate the amount of water that it needs. And so it's coming out excessively through sweat, perspiration, and then you're replacing it and replenishing it with an excessive amount, more than you actually lost through the perspiration. But then, as we talk about, and again, I can't make this something it isn't. This is not my opinion. This is the truth. Water will not hydrate a human being. Water is just 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. Guess what? I'm wrong. It's 1 part hydrogen and 2 parts oxygen. H2O? I don't know. I'm not some kind of genius on some scientifical word something a certain way. But I do know that if you're going to drink water, because if I do, and we're all the same as far as the way the body functions, it's just going to flow right through you and come back out and flush your system of all the things that are holding and regulating the amount of liquid that your body needs. So the body likes to be at a regulated state of being. If you sit down, which is already an unnatural position for your body, and you all of a sudden pound all this food into your body has just had so much introduced to it that has altered it physically. You have literally altered the size of your abdomen because you just place things into it. The body only has one normal in its current state, in its current time. And when we're eating, we only need to introduce the amount of food that it needs to give it the sustenance and energy until the next time we eat. And same with the liquids. And so when we're doing an excessive amount of that, well, you can eat an entire cheeseburger or 6 of them in one sitting until a day or 2 down the road, you go to the bathroom and, right, bowel movement, now that comes out. Where'd it go? Right? You've placed all that food into your body, but then it came back out. And what happened is you probably didn't quite eat it in the only way your body's going to actually fully digest and extract and utilize all the nutrients and things that were in that food. And so a very high percentage of what you've put into your body food-wise did nothing but go through your body without being able to be used and just go back out, as if it just took a journey through the human being and came out for no reason, really, other than it had some things that it did cause discomfort, cause the body to be overworked because now it has an excessive amount of things in it that's only in there for a time. Like within those workouts, your body has an excessive amount of muscle mass that's only there for a time. And then it goes back to its only normal. So let's see things as they are if we can. And that's what I'm doing right now, is pulling out my paintbrush and painting us a beautiful imagery. Right? I mean, this is really how it is. Truthfully. Don't let me tell you something. Do not believe me. This is the truth. I can't make it something it isn't. So, yeah. Where'd it go, right? Where'd everything go that we worked for so hard? You want 22-inch biceps, right? Take a measuring tape and go around this upper part of your arm here, and you measure that week after week. You're going to the gym, you're doing curls, some hammer curls, right? Some regular good old bicep curls. You're doing some preacher curls, right? What are you doing? You're doing some tricep extensions, right? Overhead tricep extensions, tricep kickbacks. You're doing some tricep push downs, but not only just with a bar, but you're doing it with ropes, and now you got to do some stabilization. You're trying to actually get your body to just do what it would naturally do. Woo. Leave it alone. All those things that you've done to grow your arm size, you're altering your body, actually. You're not benefiting yourself. Because now as you're laying your arms down to your sides when you stand, well, you can't. So the rotations in your shoulders, just standing stationary, the way the human body would naturally do it, isn't being allowed to happen. Because you have excess muscle mass where your tricep meets your rib cage, right? That inner part of your bicep where it would just naturally lay against your rib cage. Now your arm's being pressed outward, and your upper trap now has to do more work because it's as if your shoulders are falling down. Because your upper trapezius muscles actually pull your shoulders in as well as up. And so causing a gap between, shout out to In the Image Clothing Company's podcast, episode whatever number it was, titled Mind the Gap. I talked about how side seams within shirts can cause quite a bit to happen as far as the activation of muscles because they're doing that. They're causing a gap there. And that's what your own physical flesh is doing when you're overworking it intentionally. Doing little micro tears in your arms here, which is all working out is in the way of lifting weights to cause muscle mass to grow, hypertrophy training, size-wise, physical, visual even growth in the musculature of the human being. Now that's just in the way of your breathing. And as your rib cage is trying to expand every time you breathe, which is the one thing that actually constitutes human life, shout out to In the Image Clothing Company podcast episode titled Oxygen. I went into that. The rib cage should ideally expand in 360 degrees, all directions. It should fully open. The scapulas elevate and get out of the way with those shoulder capsules internally rotating to allow those arms to just lay gently right next to your side. In your natural body, the way that it's going to come back to after you stop doing these things and where it was before you started doing these diets, workouts, right? Don't believe me? This is the truth, okay? So now you got these big old arms. You've been measuring them week after week. You're going up in, measurements, and sure, you've got so much muscle mass there until all of a sudden you're talking with your homie and he's like, didn't you used to work out? And now it's been about 6 months since the last time you did, and your body is back to its only normal again? Where'd all that muscle mass go? Well, I don't know, but it's a good thing that it's gone because now your arms can lay at your sides and you can breathe well. The way your body's naturally going to breathe if it weren't intentionally altered by you. Okay, again, let's see things as they are, please. I am. Don't believe me? This is true. Okay, and take that little example and put it on any other part of the human being. Like I said, with organs, like the heart rate. Well, you can train your heart rate to work at an excessively high beat per minute, which just means the amount of beats that your heart does each minute, right? The heart goes pump, pump. That's one beat. And how many times does it do that to pump blood through the entire circulatory system of the body each 60 seconds of our existence? That's how we measure that. For those of you who don't know, it's fine if you don't. That's why I said it thoroughly like that. Again, I like to speak things thoroughly because I know what I'm talking about. But don't believe me. Within some of the videos, early founding In the Image Clothing Company videos in the fall of 2024, if they're still where you can find them, you can see I was saying semi-often, I know what I'm talking about. And I kind of stopped saying that and kind of changed that to don't believe me. Because whether I know what I'm talking about or not, you don't have to believe it if it's true. If it's just something that you can do and it manifests itself as being as I'm discussing it. But you're over in China. You're over in Okinawa in Japan, brother. I mean, where you at on the globe? I don't care. You're a human being just like me. And this is how we're designed to work. That's another title of one of In the Image Clothing Company podcast's episodes. Designed to work. But only the way that it is, right? Not the way that we alter it for about 3 months with our workout program and then stop again. Because it'll just go right back to the only way that it was actually designed to be. Right? That's clear enough. That's enough. That's thorough enough for you to know that I don't have an opinion on this, and I could not. But we live in a modern 2025 currently, and going forward, things only will get more unnatural. Don't believe me, but it's been prophesied about. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. Don't believe me, but look around. Okay? I like to take myself out of it. Leave me alone, right? See me in public, please don't talk to me. I mean it. And I make that very clear. It's not about me, but I'd love to share truth with the world. And so that's what I've done. That's what I'm doing in this episode 67 of the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled Where to Go. And going forward. That's my intention. So, I've said all that thoroughly enough to where, yes, you can see what I'm talking about. There's no opinion to have. The body only has its natural state. You can choose to alter it, but only for the moment in time that you are altering it. And then yesterday's workouts don't help you today. As far as they're already starting to wear off, okay? I understand it does take more than just one day to have that muscle mass that you have unnaturally gained to go back to the body's only natural. It takes more than just one day, but the next day, it is already wearing off, okay? Instantly, it's already wearing off, right? I mean, micro tears are what's happening within muscles, and then them healing back again is what's causing the muscle to grow. So, however nitpicky we can get seconds, minutes, and micromillimeters of, you know what I mean, like, your workouts yesterday are not helping you today. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to ever work out again. You work out and get your body to being all how you want it, and there you go, final form, right? That's not how it works, because what I'm saying is true. Don't believe me. Okay, that's what we're going to say on that. So, but where to go can be a lot of things. I mean, a lot of habits we have, and a lot of good things that we're doing, and a lot of routines we've gotten into that we've been wanting to or thinking, man, that'd be a great thing to do, and we do it for only a time. And then where'd it go? We're always only now. It's another one of those things. Don't believe me. You don't have to believe me on any of this. Please do not. But this is the truth. I'm not telling you something. I'm calling a spade, right? You just look at something and see it, and that's what that thing is. Meaning, that's what I do within In The Image Clothing Company, is I look at stuff and I describe it as if there could be no possible dispute. And that's what I've done within this episode. Episode 67 of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, titled, Where Did It Go? Okay, so, those times you're feeling all peaceful and you feel like you're kind of actually one with all that's around you, that's actually real. And then there's other times when you feel like you're lost, but you're laying in the same bed. Both experiences. But the first one, you had just had a very beautiful conversation with somebody. And then the second one was when you broke up with them. Right? So where'd it go? All that peace that you were feeling the first time. That you were laying there staring up at the same ceiling. Man, I've got the best boyfriend in the world, says this girl. Man, I got the best girlfriend in the world, says this guy. Until you break up. You look back up to that same textured piece of sheetrock hanging above you, and you say, what is this life for? I can't believe she left me, he says. I can't believe he left me, she says. Well, where'd all that peace and love and comfort and calmness go? Because you're in the same bed. You're the same human being. What happened? Where'd it go? Well, you want to know what the truth of all things is? That the Spirit of our living God, Jesus the Christ, is the only thing that's ever going to actually make you feel okay. A lot of things give us the illusion of feeling good and great and fine and whatever. Like all the hype that you had at the party until it's over. Where'd it go? I guess we'll have to wait to find that hype again when the next party comes. We don't want to be trying to have fleeting experiences, fleeting moments, fleeting amounts of muscle mass to the body, right? Fleeting elevated unnatural heart rate, speeds. I know a little bit about the heart. A little context for this specific episode here, episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Where Did It Go? I've had 6 heart surgeries, 2 full-on open heart surgeries. So when it comes to, beats per minute and understanding things like that, one thing I had one time was called an ablation, somewhere around a 9.5 hour surgery, which at the same time, they actually put a pacemaker into me that was only there for 2.5 weeks, and the incision site didn't heal up, and so they removed it. That's a whole story. I haven't shared about that much within In the Image Clothing Company, but I did do a video for the main site of In the Image Clothing Company last fall, 2024, titled How Pacemakers Affect Body Mechanics, because I have personal experience on it. But yeah, it's like how within In the Image Clothing Company podcast episode titled Running, you're only training running when you're running. When you're walking, you're very vertical. When you're running, you can't unless you're leaning very much forward, right? You're only training the body when you're like intending on quote unquote training the body to do the thing that you're doing. It doesn't carry over to other things, despite popular opinion, right? Don't shoot me. Just a messenger. Don't believe me. This is just truth, and always will be. I didn't design it. I can't decide it. That's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Check it out. That's why I'm referring you to these episodes, because these things are just what they are, and I've been given the gift of understanding of the things that I'm talking about. Again, humbling to me. Humbled, regardless of how prideful I am. So, yeah. There is this common thought, though, of getting yourself to train. People trying to train their bodies to do things. You can never. Don't believe me. This is bold, but don't believe it. It's just the truth. As far as you don't have to believe anything. This is just what it is, regardless of if you have any beliefs or not. Because I do not have beliefs. Okay? You will never get a physically operable mechanical machine, which is the human being, to do anything that it does not do. You will never train your body to be better at doing an operation or a function that it's not just already going to naturally do. Otherwise, again, this whole quote-unquote out of practice of operating with every joint only having the range of motion that it does, how can you be out of practice of something you're inside of your whole existence on this planet? Right? Don't believe me, it's the truth. Now, there are things like muscle memory, right? You're playing a sport, doing a certain motion, sure. But as far as training parts of your body to try to get them to stay in a certain position, training your tongue to try to sit naturally in your mouth, rather than just the only location that it would naturally rest into, you're not going to train something unless you're constantly in the training, as in without ceasing your entirety of of a human being's existence. I want to make it as real as it is, okay? You're not going to train your shoulders to sit in their only natural position. You've got many bones in the shoulder capsule as a whole. Scapula, collarbone, humerus. You got a whole joint up in there. All that stuff's just being held together and connected to other things the way that it is. Upper, middle, lower trapezius muscles, deltoids, as many as there are. Triceps, as many as, your training wheels type of bike before you only had 2 wheels. I'm trying to make this silly because it's just real, okay? Your biceps going up into there. You got all sorts of whatever, right? I mean, the shoulder's only going to sit in the location that all those things insert to. That's the only place it ever will sit. You're not going to train it to do that because it was designed to do that and only that. So really the only thing we can do, and what we show the truth of how to under In the Image Clothing Company, is allow the body to be in its only working position. Otherwise there's pain. Otherwise there is damage to the physical, mechanical machine that is the human being. You will never train your body to do anything. Is that bold? Is that okay that he's saying that? Whew. How could he really know these things? What does he know? Right? You're looking at the date of this podcast episode. This thing was filmed like 15 years ago. This is so irrelevant to modern day. At that point, it'd be what? 2030? No? That'd be 5 years from now. 2040, right? You're looking at this episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled, Where Did It Go? And you're like, we've got so much better information nowadays. Well, all the information that you think you do or don't have isn't going to change the only way that your physical body operates, because you didn't design it, so you can't decide it, and you cannot train it. It is out of a human being's doings, it is impossible. The reason I word it that way is because nothing's impossible with our God. But as far as us trying to get our bodies to do something out of us, okay, it is impossible for us to get our bodies to train to do something. Or let's phrase it this way. It's impossible for us to train our bodies to do anything. They're only going to do what they're going to do, and they'll do it well unless otherwise restricted or inhibited or altered by the only thing placed onto the human being, which is clothing. We don't have opinions here, nor can we, and I have given such thorough information and explanation in this one single episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, episode 67, titled Where Did It Go? Alone, just to help you know that we don't have opinions. I mean, I couldn't make this more as it is, and I don't care to try to make it anything different, because I don't care to try to train my body to do something that will only last for a time, because it was only me in those cases trying to alter the only natural that it will always, as long as it's allowed to, go back to. Okay? This is just how it is. Don't believe me. But it will always be this way, because it has always been this way. And because I did not decide this, nor did I design this. The body that we're talking about within this, okay? And within In the Image Clothing Company, that's what we physically do, is address the human body's natural function. I say it like that because spiritually, which comes before physical, don't believe me, but, right, we spread and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, the truth of all things. So, where did it go, right? Where did it go? All the training you did before the season came for whatever sport you're going to play. Now it's been the quote-unquote off season. And the only thing that's off in those times, if anything is, in your specific case, is your body, as far as it's not in its only working position, if you feel like you need to get it to do something before it will then work. The body's designed to work. As in, it has to work, otherwise it's not working. Do you see that? Kind of weird, but again, don't believe me. It's the truth. The body should always, in every aspect of what it is, be completely activated as a whole. Nothing to train, but if you've ever seen like a blue heeler, which is a dog, or a Maltese, you ever seen a domesticated house cat, right? I mean, have you ever seen animals Their bodies are working always, as a whole. Even when a dog is sleeping, you touch the tip of its toe and it just kind of kicks its foot. It doesn't have to think like, well, I'm completely limp and deactivated because I'm unconscious and asleep, but something touched my foot. So let me just be so conscious to now activate my leg to then move it. The leg's already activated because there's nothing restricting it to not let it be or not allow it to be. Keyword under In the Image Clothing Company, allow. The body only works as a whole. But if you're ever in a moment, I'm going to sit on that for a second, a moment in your life where your body is not activated in any portion or part of it, something else and many things are having to compensate and not do their only function because they're trying to make up for something else not doing its. The body will always only come back to its only normal, its only working state in every function that it has. So we will never train our bodies to do anything. Don't believe me. This is bold. It seems weird. It seems backward. How can he say these things? What is he doing? Guy's got some opinion or something, right? He thinks he's right. He doesn't know a thing about workouts. I've been personal training people for how many cars now? You know, you're looking back, you're like, I'm the conductor of this thing. You know, you're just getting people on board with your routines that leave, right? What happens when there's no more track that's been paved? That's where I want to be, off the beaten path, brother. Saying things that don't make sense to other people but still work when the train gets derailed, right? I'd rather be driving like a four-wheeler, side by side, right? All of a sudden some snow's coming down, throw some tracks on that thing, as far as the ones that like wrap around the wheels, right? In order to, like a tank, for example. I don't want to just be on a train that can only work if it's stuck to these two little metal rails. I've been given a body that's supposed to be able to move through its physical environment on an earth, regardless of what comes up, right? It's summertime and it's beautifully warm outside, and I'm out there in shorts and a t-shirt, right? Maybe no shoes and the nice green grass. But then it's wintertime out of nowhere, and, you know, I got a couple layers on, some boots that are keeping my feet warm and dry. The point is I want to be flexible to be what I'm going to be and know that all I'm trying to do, because all I'm ever going to do, is allow my body to do the same thing it's going to do, whether it's wintertime or whether it's summertime. I don't want to go around trying to think like, hey, I got to be so very careful about only eating this amount of sugar today because I did some workout yesterday that's not even going to last past maybe a day or two unless I keep continuing to work out, right? I mean, that's like so conditionally weird, but conditions that aren't necessary because you're getting your body to do something that is actually only damaging it because you're changing its only normal state. This is truth. I know that this is so different than what most people are saying and have said for many years, but it's the fruits of the labor. Listen to In the Image Clothing Company. Just enough to where you know what we're saying and what we're actually saying, not what you are hearing, and try these things. Because truth manifests itself to you. Don't believe Evan Strong. And please leave me alone as well. I mean those things. I mean them. But I also mean what I'm saying, even as far-fetched as some of the things might sound. Because I can't make something it isn't. And this is the truth. But you have to have some context. You have to understand that it's not your fault. That you're within stretchy clothing. And you can't even breathe the way you'd naturally breathe because you lay down on your back. And as your rib cage is trying to expand in 360 degrees, it's like, whoa, this is weird. And it's like against some stretchy material. And so it doesn't want to fully expand because it doesn't know if it'll ever come back. Right? This is real. These kind of things. The things we discuss within In the Image Clothing Company. So, where'd it go? The diet you did to get your body to be in a state you were hoping. I've been waiting all my life to diet to the point where my body functions like this. And you've done it. Until you eat a cookie. And now you're going back through these pieces of paper that have been printed out. Looking, is this on my diet plan? Can I eat this? Well, didn't you? It's already in you, right? It happened. You did eat it. So I'd say yes. If I'm being saying something. I mean, don't believe me, but I saw it go into your mouth and you swallowed it. Looks like you can, right? I mean, what we're doing weird things nowadays because we're very, very lost and out of touch. And I'm not making fun of you because, as I started this out with, toward the very beginning of this episode here, episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled, Where Did It Go? Well, where did it go? The 15, give or take, pounds of muscle mass that I gained at around 20 years old. And I have photographs. I'm a very slender person as far as just my skeletal frame, regardless if I'm over there trying to gain 15 pounds of muscle mass or not. And I've got photographs, or at least somebody probably in my family does. I got, I wiped my past, bro, a couple years ago. Everything, right? All my accounts, bank accounts, social media accounts, right? Just everything. All my photographs and messages and my whole past. I knew everything. I got reborn. This is not a joke. I mean this, as I have meant everything that I have said within this, and really everything I say within In the Image Clothing Company. I'm just being real. I know it's a little bit strange because a lot of people are not, but right, neither was I before I actually met Christ. Because I was born into, we talk about it like this. We're born into the covenant within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're born into like I'm not going to try to explain it more than that right now within this episode, but I was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints since birth. I was going to the church. I was a part of it. But when I was 23, right around there, I really met Christ. And at that point, I threw everything away. Literally. Things I had since I was a very, very little kid, I chucked into the garbage can. And they took it to what they call a dump, which means they took it on the bed of a truck and dump. And there it went, right? So... and then they fill the land with it. You ever heard of a landfill, right? It's just real. It's awesome. So I threw my life away. And I threw a lot of things away that was a little bit overstepping on my part. Because I, got a little deceived and kind of turned my back on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But here's the thing, where'd it go? All the conviction that I had growing up in the church and knowing that it was the true church. Don't believe me, but it still is. Because one thing that was once one way, and that's just what it is. If you think that it's changing, but it's not actually, then, well, where'd it go? You can have all the thoughts you want. You can do all the diets you want. You're still just a human being the way that you are. Oh, really? Yeah, you are. So just learn how your body works and understand how to introduce food to it correct. And we discussed that here, so you don't have to have any question on it, in the Image Clothing Company. And there you go. Just allow your digestive system to work the only way that it's designed to. There's no such thing as fast food up until when there was, right? Very recent time. And so people would eat, and they would eat. They wouldn't be playing on some technological device where they, while they're trying to shove food into their face as fast as they can so that they can go to a party, they would eat. We don't really eat nowadays as human beings. We feel like it's an obligation a lot of the time. And like it's an interruption to all the things we want to do. But there's only one way the body works. And so where'd it go can be a whole thing with this. We can get into all sorts of anything. On any side that we could possibly approach that with. And there's a lot that I personally could right now. Being the only one that's like within this discussion, right? And we'll see what else we do talk about this with, because where did it all go? I had those accounts of what we called social media, quote unquote, and I was seeking and striving to have X amount of what we call followers. But then once I deleted the accounts, well, where'd they go? Are they still over? No. Where? Well, they were never there in the first place. Just like that muscle mass that we gain. Well, what does it really mean to gain it if it leaves? Where'd it go? You stopped working out about a month ago, and whoa, what the, dude? Your shirt's getting bigger, or what happened to you? Right? People asking you, it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I had all this muscle mass, and where'd it go? Back to its only normal. Okay. There's only a normal. There's only one truth. Ooh, that's a little scary to you, is it? Is it? I'm asking. Don't answer. Leave me alone. But there's only one truth. And as all these opinions pop up, one thing that you at one time knew to be true, now all of a sudden you're hanging out with these other folks and these other homies and you're doing this and that. You're getting a little caught up and lost in something. And then one day you wake up and think, wow, I used to actually feel like I was pretty content. But now since I've been doing this stuff and those things with these people, it's like I don't even know who I am anymore. Well, where'd you go? Just stop doing all these new things you started and you're back to you, right? Stop doing all the workouts and you're back to you. Stop believing all the things that you didn't even know about and you're back to you. Where'd it go? We're asking, right? Things don't leave if they're real, right? If they're natural, if they're unchanging, eternal, undisputed, universal truths that we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company podcast, right? Things are just what they are. And that's why I can be so bold about this. And all of a sudden my grandchildren's grandchildren are talking to their grandchildren's grandchildren about the things that we're discussing here. And they're applying to them as well. Right? But all these 6-week programs, 8-week programs, 45-day diet specialties are a thing of the past. Where'd they go? Everyone was into that for about 4 or 5 minutes. You know, all these phone apps, these cell phone apps that have these, games that were playing as a whole globe for about a month. All of a sudden, it's 3 years later and someone's like, dude, do you remember this game? He's like, yeah, where'd that go? Dude, I mean, you turn a corner and you run into someone because they're playing that. And I forgot it was even a thing. That's because it's not real. It's not true. It's a flash in the pan, man. And it'll be gone before you kick the can. But guess what's there until that day? You are. So let's get back to you. Because sometimes we're asking, where did I go? I got caught up with these friends. I got caught up in this community. Got caught up in these habits and behaviors. And it seems so great at first. And where'd I go? Don't know who I am anymore. Well, you're still there. Just take off all the other things that you put on top. All those extra inches of size to your upper arms when you've been doing all the workouts. And there you are again. Back to the only you that's going to be there, whether you're trying to change it or not. So stop trying to. Right? Where'd it go? Well, it's still there if it's real, whatever it is. You might have just kind of gotten in the way a little bit. I've gotten in the way a lot of bit, brother. A lot of times. I just get in my own way. Because I say it like that, A lot of times I'm saying within past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, if we can just get over ourselves and blank, right? And then I talk about something. That's how it is. Because things are just what they are until we get in the way, right? We didn't design it, we can't decide it. That episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and I talked about how the earth is just what it is until human beings come. Nature used to be so beautiful, man. Where did it go? Well, if we just stop doing stuff, it'll come back. Right? where did it go? Well, it's still there. It's just, they paved a road over it, right? Give it some time. Give it some time. People will realize. And it'll come back. Oh, gosh. All right, talk about the man-made world versus the earth. Right? All of a sudden, you're thinking about over in Egypt, now they're realizing, man, there's some people buried here that were at one point in history rulers over this land, and now they're under it, Where'd they go? Oh, well, you placed a skyscraper on their grave. Give it some time. Talk about your grandkids, and their grandkids, and maybe a little farther down the road, and there it is. The same place it still was. But it seemed to change to us. Where'd it go? It's still there. You just gotta stop trying so hard and let it be what it is, right? We speak on things as they are here at In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Okay. Where did it go? Right? All that internal rotation you had as a toddler, don't take my promises that I'm not making, meaning I'm not. So this isn't going to happen for sure as far as what I can say in this current instant. But we might do an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled something about children. Because I made an episode, well, let me give some context before people get all crazy with their jumping to conclusions with their shin splints and chondromalacia patella, right? You got some compacted discs in your spine and you're wearing down your cartilage because you jump into conclusions because I said the word children and you think I'm this and that. I'm just, right? I just want to make things silly when we get into that kind of stuff because calm down, dude. Where'd the innocence of a child go is what I mean, right? Your mind's all dirty because you've been rolling around in the filth. And I've got some pearls here that I'm not going to cast. You swine. I want to make this real, okay? But what I am saying is I made a video for the main site of In the Image Clothing Company Ooh, hold on. As in, I did, and I didn't finish because it's only worded this way when I'm discussing what I am. In the Image Clothing Company, the main side of things, in the fall of 2024, I made a video titled Toddlers Are the Natural Example, okay? Because they are. Toddlers walk around and they got so much ability to just fall. And they get back up and they're fine. Maybe they cry for about 4 seconds and then you shove a binky in their mouth or a pacifier, whatever word you want to use, right? And they're like, oh, yeah. They're fine again, right? But they were crying just then. The point being, all the internal rotation that toddlers have, little infant babies and small children who are just learning to walk, right? Their ability to just recover from things. And now you're older than that. And you walk around the house after just standing up and you feel like you can't move and you're stiff as a board. Where did my youth go, you say? Well, it's still there, but it's been a little bit, it's like those tombs of those mummies in Egypt. They're still there, but you've placed a building on them, Your youth is still there, but you've placed imbalanced clothing onto your body for decades. And now you've got all this scar tissue that you just got to release and allow your body to work. The kids just haven't had that much time being altered by unnatural things yet. So they're still natural, right? Within the scriptures, it talks about unless you humble yourself and be as a little child, you can in no other way enter the kingdom of heaven, okay? Again, I'm talking about things as they are. The truth of all things, the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? But yeah, the kids, little kids, they've got internal rotation. You see kids walking around, and they walk around like me, Evan Strong, currently, because I've allowed my body to just do the only thing it was always going to do until I altered it for about 2 decades. But it didn't go anywhere. I just had to allow it to be there again. This is real, okay? Don't believe me. This is the truth. So, yeah, you see kids walking around and their feet are pointing in. A kid will go like this and look up onto a counter and they're pulling themselves up like this and their feet are like pointing together and upward like this. And it's like, oh, that's so cute. We're looking at them. Well, I agree. I love children a lot. I'm very excited to have my own when I do. But it's also not something that's just specific to kids. It's just like I was discussing. And again, don't believe me, but you can visually see it in my own personal body. Like within the podcasts, in the Image Clothing Company podcast, normally I'm sitting, at least up until today's date's podcast, at least up until episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Where Did It Go? I'm normally sitting down to where you can only see like the top part of me, like from like my rib cage up, give or take, right? But on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, you get to see my body move because I'm using myself as a physical example and showing the internal rotation of my feet and my legs. And I haven't trained it. But I've just stopped the rotation limitation by the things that in this nation we're getting so impatient and moving from the slow speeds of doing things to thinking that we need some things in a faster pace and going through this line to try to find something to eat, but the meat is not even real and we steal everybody else's place in line to try to find the front of it to get to this fake meat and eat the things we think we want until we sit there and slump over because we've eaten something weird at a fast food restaurant. You see what I mean? Fast food, something that didn't exist in the past. I'm choking. Just meaning as we go through this earthly life as a human being, we have the potential to take part in man-made things. Or we can just sit in nature, bro. I mean, because what I mean is in a natural state of being. In that state your body's in before you start doing the workouts. And then it is the same state it'll go back to after you stop doing them. As long as, you can get out of the patternings you've created through doing something so unnatural, forcing your body to do such a pointless, repetitive motion of a curl, of a deadlift. Oh, but I have a job where I'm lifting heavy weight all the time. Yeah, but like this, with your arms spread exactly the distance apart that they are, and an overhand grip like this, and only going exactly straight up and back down? Is that really how your job is? When you say you're lifting heavy things that you're trying to quote unquote train your body to do? Well, I don't think so. And if I'm wrong, then that'd be an interesting sight to see. What kind of job you got where, you're a personal trainer, right? I mean, there's no other thing that you're doing where you're literally doing the movement you're doing in a deadlift or a barbell squat or a bench press. Tell me what you're doing in life that looks just like that. Even pushing a cart at the grocery store, you're not doing a bench press. You're never going to be doing a bench press at that angle, right? Your arms are kind of down like this and stuff. Also, when you're doing a bench press, your rest of your body is just deactivated. You're laying on your glutes. Try to activate your glutes. It's going to raise your lower back off the bench that you're pressing off of. Your scapulas can't even be retracted behind you because the weight that's on top of your hands that you're trying to bench press is pressing your scapulas into something and deactivating your rotator cuffs, which are the things allowing your shoulders to move. I'm not trying to be condemning people because you don't know what you don't know, but I want to hit it as bold as it is because In the Image Clothing Company speaks truth. I don't have opinions I'm preaching here. So let me give some thorough explanation and some context so you can see that. Don't believe me. You see why I say that? Because I mean it. Do not believe me. This is the truth. So, yes, there we go. I mean, what do we want to talk about? Because a lot of times I don't like to talk. Please leave me alone, and I mean it. But I love to be able to share these things. So I've been given an avenue to do that. The gift of video, as I call it, right? So much gratitude. In all seriousness, because this is just how it is. I mean, I'm speaking truth. You want to dispute it? Cool. But don't, for your sake, because it's just the truth. And there is only one. The gospel of Jesus Christ, man. And it's the same. yesterday, today, and your grandkids. I mean, right? And as far off that direction as we can go, which is what we think we want to call the future, right? Where did it go? All those events that you're sitting there and telling people about while you're showing them the photographs of that, well, it's not there anymore. Now you're just showing them a piece of paper that has some color that's dotted onto it that resembles what you experienced. Where'd your experience go? Well, you're only now, so be here, right? I mean, where did it go? I mean, what do we want to talk about? How much do we want to get into where did it go? I'm asking that as in I'm praying through it as I'm still kind of saying things because we really can hit this on so many ends, bro, right? I mean, I could get into this, dude. I am such a philosophical mastermind of being able to intellectually pick apart the world, right? I want to make it silly, but at the same time, I'm very smart. Sound egoic? Cool, I don't care. It's the truth. So what I mean, though, is I like to really help people with things that have helped me because all we ever actually need is the truth, you know? And if you don't, then that's why you're here. And stick around. Deeper context, deeper explanations, more thoroughly picking things apart. And I do that. I'm good at it. Don't believe me, right? I mean it though, brother. I mean, for real, dude. So where did it go, right? All those things that are just not even real. I mean, all that's ever real is right now, man. One eternal round. That's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. One of the episode's titles. Yeah, man. So all those experiences that you think of in the past that you wish you could have right now, well, where did they go? Get your fishing rod and see if you can cast it far enough back into the past to grab it and hurry and reel it back to you. I mean, it's not here anymore, bro, because you are. And you're the one that's going to be experiencing the things that you're going to be experiencing, and you're always only now. So I like to paint some pictures. But what I was saying is I think we will probably, and if not, we'll always talk about children the way that we address how they're unaltered. Meaning, again, I mean, within the gospel. Yeah. Another thing is, like, I know how silly people are, dude. We live in a modern 2025, and if a single man mentions a child, then he's got some intention about whatever, right? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like there's such touchy subjects out there. Oh gosh. Can we just talk about things and understand that people aren't always out to get you, right? I mean, holy cow, dude. I mean it. I just mean it. But yeah, I mean, we might do an episode titled something about children, right? Something similar to that video that I made, Children Are the Natural Example, or something, because, or it might be titled something like Becoming Like a Little Child, right? Because that's like what I was saying, you know, it's like, where did my youth go? I used to be so youthful. Well, what does it really mean to be youthful? Because what we usually assign to being youthful is something like that, like a really functioning body, or looking at the world with wonder because everything seems so new. I mean, we're never going to go through this life and see everything. Like, there's always going to be new things to see, and we can have the wonder of a little child. And that's what that's one of the ways that it's meaning that when it says that's the only way you're going to enter the kingdom of heaven is if you humble yourself and become like a little child, right? Yeah, so let's look at things as they are. Let's hear things as they were spoken, right? Can we just be real, please? I know it's hard. And I mean, it's hard if you're trying to do it on your own. So that's the whole point is we spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. We speak on the truth of all things because it's something that's never going to leave. It's something that you can never ask, where did it go? Unless you are somewhere else. As far as intention-wise, as far as attention goes, we need to be focusing tunnel vision straight toward our Savior, Jesus Christ. And then we never have to ask, where did it go? Because we can ask him, what can I do? Children, dude, I love kids, bro. I grew up with no younger siblings, and I wasn't really around much of anybody. I mean, I was kind of like the male version of that princess that's locked up in her castle, and I just didn't really get outside my house growing up. I was like a little caged puppy, right? And that's just how it was, dude. It was not fun. But I always loved kids, and I still do. And yeah, they have that way of looking at the world, man. This like everything's like, whoa, what is that? Oh my gosh. You know, like they're looking at stuff as if it's like you hand them a pencil and they think it's like a magic wand, right? Or oh well, shoot. I mean, we're not into magic, but I just mean, you know what I mean? Like kids see things as if it's like this whole adventure and it's some pillows stacked up in what you've labeled as a fort. You know what I mean? And so we're looking around like, where did my youthful, playful nature go? Right? Because that's you until you get indoctrinated into what the society that you're placed into wants you to be and believe. So don't believe me. And I mean it for those kind of reasons. Okay? Because the people that we admire so much are very childlike. Right? Childlike. Not the word childish, like immaturity. Childlike is like that sense of wonder, right? There's a lot of people that we just admire so much because they remind us of looking at this life that we're in, the way that children look at everything as if it's just, whoa, dude, that's awesome. And then, you know, we go through our lives and sometimes we're looking at things like, oh my gosh, really, I gotta do that? Versus a kid, they're like, what is this? You know, first experience, right? So the whole thing is, where did it go? Your youthfulness, you know, it's still there. We just need to be able to not be afraid to be that, right? Your naturally functioning body is still there with your level of fat content that you think is too much. Well, go to the gym and get an unnatural amount of whatever in, right? Cardio or weight training or repetitive motion that's just, right? Don't, is what I mean. You're just what you are, and let it be. Let it be. Let it be. Whisper words of wisdom. Sometimes I'm screaming words of wisdom through In the Image Clothing Company podcast, dude. I understand. I get it. I mean, I don't know if people know if people are like, does that kid realize that this happens, right? I mean, my voice is high to low to 5 to no more anymore. Any 4, right? Across the street, I dropped my Jeep into the low gear. I'm nowhere near here. I'm up in the mountains. I'm a mountain to nothing if I'm not doing what I'm told to, right? I sold who? Sold my past self to the dump, right? I'm just saying, dude, a lot of words that are really, really beneficial if you'd like to hear them. But just hear what I'm saying, not what you're hearing. And also, don't believe me. And also, we speak truth. So, right, I mean all this stuff. So the whole thing is, though, if something's not here now, then, well, let's look at it and figure out what's really going on. Because things that are eternal don't go anywhere besides just kind of get covered up by other things. But they're still there, right? So, yeah. That's something that gets asked so often, though, in the ways that we do, even if it's just like a thought that we're having and not like those specific words, but we're thinking about stuff like, man, this used to be blank, and why isn't it now, right? Well, where'd it go? Why can't it be, right? I mean, if it was there at one point and it's real, then it's able to be there right now, right? Because like your spouse who you loved so much, you can't really, you know, because this is the thing is, some people have a spouse, right? They get married and they love this person and they're great together. They treat each other as well as you can, being a sinful by nature human being, right? I'm messing up left and right and you're messing up right and left, and together opposites attract, okay? So let's make a U-turn like time and time again and just sit in one eternal round, That was cool. That was cool. I loved that. That was really sweet. Oh my gosh. I'm going to just sit here for a second because I loved that. Talk about wordplay. Okay, I will. Let's make a podcast, right? Like, oh, In the Image Clothing Company music as well. Go over there if you'd like to. Gosh, that's cool. But here's the thing. A lot of times there's people who have a spouse. They get married, they have somebody who they are with, you know, and they're good together. And their spouse dies. But the love that they had with that person, they can experience again. And a lot of times people do get remarried to somebody else. Because that's the thing, is it's our experiences and it's our intentions to and behind the things that we're doing that don't have to leave just because something that seems conditional maybe looks a little differently at times. Because what you're wanting is the love that you experienced within the relationship, and you can still feel that. And right, I mean, it doesn't have to leave forever, you know. I mean, your spouse dies and what are you going to do about it? Sit there and complain? I mean, it's hard. I haven't had that happen to me personally. I've never been married up until today's date, right? But next weekend, you know, no, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm sure it's like a lot to go through, but you've gone through it. And so, you know, it's not like you can never experience love again. That's the truth. Don't let me tell you something, but you probably want to hear that, okay, right? Right. So that's what I mean. All people want is truth, and that is the truth. That love that you experience with them isn't gone because they're not physically here anymore. You can experience that love by finding somebody else who you can love the same way you loved them. And a lot of times people find somebody who loves them in an extremely similar way to how their deceased spouse, in this case, loved them, right? Things don't just have to leave and never be able to come back again. They really don't, because we're still here, right? Until we're not. I mean, this life is just a journey. It's full of things that change. And so we kind of have to be able to change with them, right? But through that, we're still just that child that's within us, that sometimes we're asking, where'd it go? And then other times we're giggling so hard and laughing at something that somebody said, and orange juice is coming out of our nose and burning our sinuses, and we feel like a little kid again, right? That's what it means when it says humble yourself and be like a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. It didn't go anywhere. You're still the same thing. You've just had a little bit more life experience between then and now, right? Don't believe me? Yeah. So there's only one foundational position of the body, as we talked about. There's only one foundational amount of normal, in your own personal case, body fat percentage, muscle mass percentage. And that's just what it is, because anything you add to that or try to get rid of from that is only going to be those ways as long as you're trying to do something. And once you stop, where'd it go? Well, where you went is back to the you that you always were. I think we will do an episode on children. I mean, that's really the thing. I say the phrase, the goal is natural, under In the Image Clothing Company. And children are natural until they're potentially very much altered, right? I mean, told what to believe and how to see the world like I was for my whole upbringing with my earthly father, right? My dad telling me how to see things. And in times I lost that childlike wonder. And now I've said recently, just throughout my life, there was a freestyle I did on the In the Image Clothing Company music. I used Frank the guitar, and one of the lines in there I said, I feel like I'm more of a kid than I was back then. Because when I was a kid, growing up, I didn't feel like I was allowed to be. But now, I'm that kid that got stuffed down under that skyscraper in the tomb in Egypt, right? I just mean, that Pharaoh's been buried there still, and you may not know it or feel like it until the skyscraper falls over and you excavate underneath it, right? That's what I say when I talk about, like, we're never going to better ourselves as human beings. We're really not. Because, sure, you've built this big old skyscraper, but it's unnatural. And all that is always there and only there and will come back to being something that is in your awareness once the skyscraper falls over from the earthquake is the earth that's underneath it. Right? You're only that child, and you always will be. Sons and daughters of our living God, Jesus Christ, even at 95 years old. Or 110. Talk about living forever. Right? Shout out to Strong's Concordance. Listen to this. You already are. A lot of times, though, we feel like we're a skyscraper. And each floor of that skyscraper is a belief we've been adopting and something else we were told by somebody and a mistake we made and a meaning we assigned to this and that and those things. And all of a sudden we're looking off the edge of this high skyscraper of beliefs we've built and wondered where the kid went that was at the bottom. Until the earthquake happens and we fall back to the only reality that's there, which is the earth-level foundation of Jesus Christ, the rock on which our foundation is built. Talk about a mic drop. I might stop, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna wrap it up because that was amazing. Don't let me tell you something and don't believe me, but I'm saying that of my own doing, and I was the one who said all the words, so that was unreal, actually. I love this. I didn't know how this was all gonna go. As far as this episode, I didn't know exactly all that I was going to mention with it or anything, but, right, again, talk about being on your high horse and getting knocked off it back to ground level, right? Skyscraper of beliefs and opinions and thinking you're better than this guy and that guy, thinking whatever about Evan Strong because he's talking about things he shouldn't. And then you realize I'm speaking truth and you get knocked back to the earth, and now we're looking at each other eye to eye. As if I'm in a deep, low squat where a lot of people are trying to train their bodies to get to, but it's just how the body will work if it's unaltered. And I'm looking at a toddler face to face because now I'm at his level. Humble yourself and be like a little child. That's how you're going to enter the kingdom of heaven. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Welcome to choir. No, just kidding. But if you'd like to, I'll welcome you over on In the Image Clothing Company Music. With some beautiful guitar playing. I'm pretty good. Don't believe me, brother. Okay, so today's the 22nd of February, 2025. Last two words in our name, In the Image, quote, Clothing Company, unquote, right? We will have clothing available to purchase if you'd like, if and when it comes time for that to be something that you do. But if you do, just please try to do all you can to get it in your size. Oversized clothing is damaging to the body for all the reasons that we discuss here at In the Image Clothing Company, just because, again, we speak on things as they are. So, yes, a lot of context that I've given up until now, today's date, if you will, and past, where, yeah, you can know what I'm talking about with that. But, you know, again, the shoulders only hinge where they do. Clothing has to fit. The hips only have the operations they do. Pants have to be above them. The ankles have to be able to lift up and dorsiflex. You know, those toes have to come off the ground like that, right? Oversized, meaning too long of pants sitting on the tops of your feet, right? The wrists. Naturally, the neutral wrist is kind of like back a little bit like this, not just in line with the upper part, like the, you know, like the back of your forearm. It's actually cocked back just very slightly, kind of like, you know, because when you hang your arms down to your sides, your thumbs point forward and they just kind of point straight down to the ground. So sleeve cuffs off the hands, right? So just try to do all you can to get it in your size in the Image Clothing Company clothing. If you ever purchase it, right? 100% natural materials, staying centered, fitting correct, allowing the body to work. Those are our intentions behind what we will put out. So, gosh. I started this off by saying that it was humbling to me. And you can probably tell within my countenance right now, I've been very much humbled by what this is and what I've been allowed to speak through this episode here, episode 67 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled, Where Did It Go? So, thank you.